everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Male Perspective. I am your host, Lana Reid, and today on this day, I have with me a gentleman by the name of Brian Mujuru. He is a pastor, speaker, and author of a newly released book that I am so looking forward to hearing more about today. But first and foremost, as I always like to do, I like to take a quick moment to pause in the beginning to say thank you for making time to talk with me today. Time is a gift. Once we give it, we can't get it back. So I appreciate you carving out this space for me today. And with that, Pastor Brian, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here. And I hope we can, share a few things and get your audience in touch with what we are going to be speaking about.
Awesome. Now, one of the beautiful things I enjoy about doing this show is I get to speak to men all around the world, and today is one of those days. So, Brian, could I please trouble you to tell us, where am I speaking to you from today?
Yeah, so you are speaking with me from the United Kingdom. I live in a little town just outside London. So it's great to be here. It's a little over 8 o'clock in the evening. Okay. So yeah, it's great to be here.
All the way from London. Okay, awesome. Yeah. England. Okay, great. Now, as I mentioned in the opening, you have a new book out called Tears of a Husband, and it has an accompanying workbook along with it. And it talks about the journey you and your wife went through to have children. So if I could trouble you in the beginning as we get started, to just kind of share that journey and what motivated you to write the book, if I could trouble you to do.
All right, so Tears of a Husband is actually the first book that we released. It was around April of last year, and the new book, which most people are calling it a workbook, but I like to call it a tool book. We recently released it last week on the 13th, and it's an exciting project which was actually birthed from the first book. So as you mentioned, the first book, Tears of a Husband, it was a journey, a personal journey, where myself and my wife, we struggled to have children for 10 years. We did it all, Lana, we did it all. We went to the physicians, the doctors, they were saying everything looks fine, but we can't understand why you can't have children. We went, because I'm from Africa originally, from a country called Zimbabwe in the southern of Africa. And we went to what we call witch doctors. I don't know what you call them in America, but witch doctors, to get some more spiritual help. We went all over the place, just trying to figure out what was going on. But nobody was helping us. Nobody was telling us what was going on. The witch doctors will tell us, funnily enough, oh, we can see the baby. But baby never came. 10 years of searching and searching. So during that journey, I went through a lot. My wife went through a lot. And it was only when we started, we were going to church here and there, but it was only when we made the decision to be serious about our walk in God that, we began to see God move for us. And 3 children later, I'm here to testify that, God did open the womb, and I have 2 boys and a beautiful girl, and I get so excited about that. Yeah.
Awesome. I love it. Now, you said that you were kind of going to church here and there during this process. So I guess I want to ask, because I'm calling you Pastor Brian, when did you become a pastor?
So I wasn't a pastor then. It was only, I think I've been a pastor now. My eldest son is 9. So probably maybe about 6 years now, I'm a pastor. Okay. Yeah, so it was a beautiful journey, learning the Lord. And I went through a lot. And I think these are some of the things that I wanted to share, especially with a lot of the men out there, to say, you know what, sometimes we go through a lot of these challenges and we are not able to talk, to share these problems. So I had a moment of kind of reflection when my first book was out. There's a particular chapter in that book which I call Mixed Emotions, where I briefly talk about what was going on within me, the emotions, the frustration, the anger, the pain, but not being able to share. And it was through that chapter that I started to talk more to people. People were asking, friends. It started with close friends and my inner circle saying, but how were you feeling? And these were people I knew who knew me over this long journey, but we never spoke about feelings. We never spoke about I'm feeling pain, I'm angry, I'm depressed, I'm sad. We never spoke about that. But it was only after that book was finished and people started to talk openly. And I just got a revelation to say, you know what, men want to talk about these things, but there's always a big but there, but they don't want and they can't seem to find the way to talk about these emotions. So that's how this new book was birthed, based on a perception, my perception on what I was going through. And I kind of felt that men are going through the same thing. It might not be research out there telling us how 100 men are feeling, out of 100 men are feeling depressed, out of 100 how many men are feeling angry. But I based it on, if I am feeling this way, I'm pretty sure that there are other men there who are feeling this way. So that's how it was birthed. It took us actually, I was working with a good team. It took us about a year to finish the workbook, just to make sure that it was right, just to make sure that it wasn't, I was not looking for a clinical solution, like a clinical solution. It was a book that I wanted people to relate to say, you know what, I get that. I get, yeah.
Awesome. So you mentioned in your own personal journey, there was some frustration and some anger, and I think it looks different for every person, especially for every man. So for you, when you were going through this, how did your anger and your frustration express itself? How did it look for you? What were you going through?
It was a bit crazy. Arguments, it starts off little, the odd little arguments around the house, and then it takes one word, one word that my wife would say, or one word that I would say, and then things would escalate, and the shouting, the screaming, and it, with anger, it always quantifies itself, the shouting, the screaming, and then the throwing of things, the smashing of things. And it was so bad that towards the tail end of the 10 years, just before, God did what he did, we were so frustrated with our relationship. We were like, is this working? Is this working? So the anger was so crazy, and it was very difficult to talk about it. I had nobody. I had nobody, because culture, remember, I don't know how it is in America, but for us, especially men in Africa, you cannot talk about your feelings. You cannot talk about, those feelings that make you look vulnerable. You can't express that. So you have to keep it in as a man, hold it in, hopefully in the near future, things will get better, but you can't talk about those feelings. And the anger was so much, the frustration, imagine this. I gave somebody this example. I said, they asked me, how were you feeling during this journey? I said, imagine a pack of assorted sweets. You get sour ones, sometimes you get, bitter, different tastes. So imagine every day you open that pack of sweets and you have no idea which one you are going to take. That was what I was going through. I had no idea what emotions, sometimes I would appear happy, but sometimes I'll just be sad, I'll be withdrawn, sometimes I'll be frustrated, angry. So it was a crazy time during that time.
Oh, wow. So what was it when you were going through the journey that you said, or you and your wife said, look, we can't do anything. We can't do this like this anymore. This has to get better. We have to make some changes. What was the aha moment?
The aha moment was, we can't carry on like this. And I think the decision that we made to seriously start going to church, we started to go to church. We got people, the pastor starting to talk to us. That was very, very important. And there's a particular chapter again in the first book, chapter 5, where I talk about a good person who became a good friend, who became a brother, who became family to me. Back in the day, I used to drink heavy, liquor, alcohol, everything, just to numb the pain. And it just so happened I came into contact with this particular guy. And, we used to drink like crazy, man. We would sit in the house, drink, oh, man. But something happened during that time again, just to answer your question again. I broke down in front of him.
Wow.
I just broke down in my drunken state. I just broke down, just started to cry and cry and cry. And we began to have conversations about what I was going through. And what I wanted at that particular time, and I didn't know, was just somebody to listen to me. I didn't want any solutions to tell me, you get people tell you it's going to be okay, pray harder.
Mm.
I didn't want to hear that. I just wanted somebody to listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy just listened and listened. It took us months until I let it all out. And then we began to talk about, things that I could do, how to deal with my emotions. And it was a crazy time.
Well, we're glad you got through it. We're glad you got through it.
Yeah.
I'm curious because sometimes we as women, as the significant other of you men folk, and you guys are difficult creatures sometimes. I'm wondering, how was it that your wife was able to assist you through your journey and be there? Because I'm pretty sure she was struggling with her own emotions as well.
Yeah, she was. I think, truth be told, I never really got to understand what she was going through because I was fighting my own battle. Okay. And I suppose that was the selfish part about that journey as well, where I was trying to deal with me. I never took time, during the angry outbursts, the throwing of things, the walking out the house and, staying out for days on end, drinking and then, just being up to no good. I didn't take time to understand how she was feeling as well, the pain that she was feeling. But I think one thing that changed when I came into contact with this person, this friend, now I call my brother, I began to just to understand that talking does help. Yes. It might not solve the immediate problem, but it helps, to release that pressure. So I started to talk more to my wife. We started to talk. We didn't have the solutions. We didn't have, the solutions of when and how we're going to get the baby, but it kind of eased. I started to get to understand where she was coming from, the arguments. She was angry too. She was hurting too. And it's I don't know. God just did amazing, and that's why I'm advocating, because I've seen the power in talking. I've seen the power in us men just being open and talk about those emotions. These emotions, sometimes I look at it like this. Racism is a very big thing all over the world, and I'm sure even in America, where if we don't, my personal opinion, if we don't address it on the roots, on the ground roots, it is going to continue to manifest. You look at the families. If it is not addressed within the families, it will keep growing. So that is where I had a conversation with another chap. We were talking about race, and I said, if we're not going to have conversations with our children to change the way they think and feel about race, it is going to continue. In your, I'm not saying your household, but in a household where people degrade Black people, degrade white people, the children, that's what they hear. Remember, what you hear, you keep believing. You're going to keep believing. So that is what is going to keep manifesting. Those children are going to grow up hating, and they're going to have children. They're going to hear the same thing, and they're going to keep saying those hurtful things. Same thing with these emotions. If we start teaching our children, particularly our young men out there, how to manage this anger, to talk about, yes, I am angry. It doesn't make you less of a man to talk about the pain that you're feeling. It doesn't make you less of a person or a man to talk about the sadness that you're feeling. It will help us to equip those children, our young children. And I think that's where this work kind of comes in, to try and give men a space. We're not saying we're going to solve your problems. This is a space that we want you to start talking.
Awesome. Awesome. Now, you have had a great evolution and growth over the years, but you did mention that you are a man from Africa, and I have quite a few friends from different countries in Africa, and there's some very cultural norms that are strongholds. I'm wondering, when you go back home to visit, is your new thought process as a man, is it received well, or is there still a lot of old customs, traditions, mindsets still prevalent today?
I think it's actually a journey. It is a journey for anything to change.
Mm-hmm.
Cultural norms are some of the most difficult things to change.
Mm-hmm.
And what I always say to people is you cannot just come there and start changing things. It is going to be very difficult. A person has lived with these norms for half a decade, for all their life. So it's very difficult. But the most important thing to do is to start. If you don't start, you're never going to start the journey. So if you start the journey of talking, highlighting, that's the most important. And those are some of the things that when I go back to Africa, especially in Zimbabwe, my father is late now, and it's my mom who still resides in Zimbabwe. Okay. I have these conversations with her about how I've changed as a man, how I've changed as a son, how I've changed, as a son. Some of the conversations are quite uncomfortable, but these are conversations that I have to make. And one of the things that I've seen, especially with my peers in Africa, there are a lot of people who want to talk about these things. There are a lot of people who want to share, but it's that stepping out that they're afraid of because of the cultural norms, because of what society, how society is. I'm sure it's the same in the United States, where men are put on this pedestal that men cannot cry. The phrase, man up, come on, man up. I grew up with that phrase, boy, man up. You gotta man up right now, or else I'm gonna deal with you. You gotta man up. So I grew up with that phrase, and these are some of the things that we are trying to break down, to teach the younger ones. And I pray that every day, every time I go back to Africa, this message will continue to be received.
Awesome. Now, one more thing real quick I want to do, because the media likes to say that marriage doesn't work anymore, especially within the Black culture. So please tell me, how long have you and your wife been together now at this point?
We have been together for 18 years. 18 years we've been married, and it takes two people to work. I'm telling you, it hasn't been easy, but we had to work. Even when the chips were down, when things looked like it's over, we had to work. But we also had to allow people into our marriage, not just any ordinary person, but people who are going to build our marriage, people who are going to, walk with us in the times of challenges, in the times of problems, to build that marriage. And we were so lucky that we had that in my pastor, and we had that we had a small, a circle of friends who encouraged us, who pushed us. And that works, 18 years later, we're still together. We celebrated the 18th on the 31st of October, and it was amazing. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. I love to hear it. Now, let's move on to the children. You said you have 2 boys and a girl, right?
2 boys and a girl.
Awesome. So now that we've got a new mindset, I'm wondering how you and your wife are now teaching the boys, and especially the girl, that it's okay for men to express their emotions, because now you're the new generation, you're the new teacher, you're teaching a new mindset to your kids. How does that look in your household?
It's I can say it's not easy. It's not easy because obviously here in the United Kingdom, my children were born here in the United Kingdom, so they have also their own culture that they are trying to form and build. I am so happy that I get to share my culture, which is obviously their culture, the African culture. So I still have times where I fall back into that man up, even though I made the decision that I need to change. But these are things that have been ingrained in me. I find myself sometimes stepping back and going back into the old ways, especially around the kids. And then I have to say, hold on. We are trying to make a change. So I talk to my boys. I grew up in a family where dad never used to say, I love you. For an African man, it was difficult. Not that they didn't love you, but it was something that they didn't say. So for me, that was one of the things that was so difficult when my sons were growing up, just to say I love you. My wife ended up saying, Brian, you need to. And I said, I know, I'm trying. but it was so heavy. But when I began to say it was difficult. But the longer I did it, the longer I said it, I started to embrace that, you know what, my kids want to hear this because that is what they want to hear. Go back to what my father did. So what did he hear when he was growing up?
Yeah.
So what he heard and what was done to him when we grew up was what he became. And I nearly became that, but because I made a choice to say it needs to end. It needs to end. So it's been going okay with the kids. We try as much as possible. We sit down with them regularly, allow them to talk, allow them to express themselves. Sometimes they express themselves in the wrong ways, but we have to teach them to express themselves the correct way.
Awesome. I think that's the beautiful thing about kids. They understand that parents don't have all the answers, but as long as they see their parents actively trying, they're going to work with their parents. So that's beautiful. I'm curious. And the oldest one is how old now?
So the oldest is 9. Yeah, the oldest is 9. The middle one is 7, and the baby girl is 6.
Okay, so you've been a dad for 9 years now. So my question is, what have you learned from your children? What have they taught you?
Oh my God, that question is that question is. Do you know what? It's a difficult question. But over the years, I've learned to be patient with my children. I think patience is a virtue. If you're not going to be patient with your children, it is going to be difficult, especially to form that relationship with them. I've also learned that they've actually taught me that I need to make time for them. This world is busy. It's busy, especially with the jobs that we do. I'm a pastor. I pastor people. I do a lot of other things. And if I don't make time for them, it is going to be very difficult. So they've taught me that in their own little way that, Dad, you need to make time for us. 5 minutes, 10 minutes here, just to roll with them in the grass and play football, play soccer. So that's been a great lesson. But the greatest lesson that I've learned is that I need to express myself. And they've taught me, even though they don't tell me directly, but they've taught me that I need to express more to them. Tell them how I'm feeling. Tell them that I'm hurting. Tell them that I love them. Things like that. It helps our kids, to be better prepared when they grow up.
So they're continuing to help Dad with his journey to manage or helping his emotion, getting his emotions out. Awesome. That's right. So let me circle back to the, it's not a workbook, it's a toolkit, you said.
I call it a toolkit, yes.
Let me get it right, toolkit. So how do men effectively use the toolkit? How does that work?
So when I with the team, we had discussions about calling it a workbook. Within the toolkit, we do use the words, workbook. But essentially, why I wanted to call it a toolkit is because, when you have the toolbox, you have different tools that are in there. You've got your pliers, you've got your screwdriver, you've got different, instruments that are in there. But they all have one job, but it is the person who's using them, who's using those tools. So it's about the person using those tools. Yes, the screwdriver can, do whatever it needs to do. But if I, as the person using that screwdriver, don't use it correctly, and the screwdriver works differently for different people. So that was the whole concept behind me calling it a toolbox. To say, look, this is a position that, not a position per se, but this is what I went through. And this is what I felt worked for me. So here's the toolbox. Go in there, have a look and see what I use. If it's fit for purpose for you, you can use it too. But at the same time, it gives us an opportunity to start conversations. They go in the toolbox and say, why do you need a pliers? Why do you need a screwdriver? And then we can start having that conversation. The pliers is for XYZ, the pipe, the wrench pipe, the screwdriver is for this. So that's the main purpose that the toolkit is for.
Awesome. And you said the toolkit came out how long ago?
We released it on Saturday, the 13th of November.
Okay.
That's when we released it. I mean, we completed the work probably around September, October. And then we finalized everything, and the official release was last week. And it was actually, I wanted to make it intimate for men, so we did it on Zoom. But the amount of feedback as we were preparing, that we had, my wife started having her friends saying, why is pastor saying it's just for men, the launch? We also want to be part and parcel of what's going on. We want to understand more about men and emotions. It helps us also understand them, and it
Yes.
helps us understand our own emotions. So we eventually opened it up to include all the ladies, our aunties, our moms, our grandmas. And we also put it through on Facebook. So it was quite great. A lot of people from all parts of the world were part and parcel of that. And it was a great launch. And I'm happy with what we set out to achieve.
Awesome. Now, I was on your Facebook page getting ready for today's show, and I saw some videos that you put out that I think men should really circle back to and get. And it was Simply the Gospel, the men's edition.
Yes.
Could you tell me some more about that, or how you started that, or what that's all about?
So Simply the Gospel, the men's edition, is also something that was birthed through after the book. I used to do a gospel session just called Simply the Gospel, where I'll share the words, break the word down, and get people to try and be interactive in just talking about the word. Because I think sometimes it's important not just for the pastor to speak, but also to hear what people have to say, to just to get a feel of what they understand about this good news. So the Simply the Gospel men's edition was then birthed again from the book Tears of a Husband, where I wanted to talk about all things men. So when I launched it was kind of all over the place, because I was like, yes, I've got something, I've got a passion, and I didn't prepare for it properly. And then I kind of had to step back and say, look, I can't just get excited about something. I really have to, do the research. I really have to know what I want to talk about. I really have to get an understanding of what men want to talk about. So we kind of pulled back for a bit while we were doing the preparation, and in the process we were also writing the toolkit, and so it's all falling in place. We're working extra hard. We're hoping to relaunch that series again in the new year, hopefully in January. We're going to relaunch it the proper way, and just give men that opportunity, because that's what I want to do. I'm not the only person out there. I'm not going to say, yes, follow me, it's me. No, but I want to complete. It's trying to complete the other people who are out there. There are people out there, there are soldiers out there who've begun this work of trying to raise awareness of how men feel and why men should speak out. So I just want to be part of those many people who are out there just to raise awareness. And I do hope that this toolkit will help that. And I also do hope that the program, Simply the Gospel Men's Edition, is going to be part of those tools that are going to help our men out there.
Beautiful. Awesome. Now, before we wrap up and I ask you the random question, I want to ask you if you had one or maybe two things that you could say to a man who was really struggling. He was bubbling inside. He had some emotions. Everybody around him is telling him, man up, but he's feeling like he can't hold on to it anymore. What is the one thing you would say to him?
One thing I would say to him is it is going to be difficult. That's the message I always say to people, that, when we're going through all these problems, we're not going to lie and say, you're in that current state, you're fine. No, things are going to be difficult, but have hope. Have hope that things are going to be all right. One of the things that worked for me was, even though I was holding on by a thread, I had hope that things were going to be okay. And when you have hope, you're going to start attracting the right people around you. I had this friend I told you about. So that person was going through problems. Find that one person you can relate to. Out of all the people who are bringing you down or telling you negative things, there's always going to be one person who's going to say, yeah, it's going to be all right. Stick to that person. They're going to be able to encourage you. They're going to be able to, just to walk with you, because that is what you need to make up your mind, to have that desire. It's about desire. If I have the desire to want to come out of this problem, that's what I need to do. Have the desire first. Once you have the desire, you've already said enough is enough. Enough, enough, enough. And once you do that, once you tap into the resources around you, particularly friends, family, that will begin your journey, because it's about beginning the journey. Once you begin the journey, that's when you begin to see, the different spaces, the different people, the different approaches out there. What we are trying to do is not to be clinical. Like I said before, we're not trying to be clinical. When things get bad, we always have to encourage people to seek the appropriate help. There's a lot of help that is out there. In America, I'm sure there's different organizations, governmental organizations that are out there to support people who are in desperate,
Yes.
times, feeling emotionally, going through terrible challenges. Same here in England and all over the world. So we always encourage people that if they're finding it extremely, terribly discomforting and that they can't manage, seek out that professional help. We are here just to stir the pot, to begin to get men to talk more at the grassroots level. Once we do that, I do believe that we can change the community.
Awesome. Awesome. Great. I love it. Now I lied. I got one more question.
That's okay.
If some of us ever find ourselves in London, where do we go to catch a word from Pastor Brian?
All right, so we are based in London. We're called the Kingdom Church. We're based in London, in a town. It's in a town called Elephant and Castle. So you can come down there. I have all the details, especially on my social media handles. Okay. You go to my Instagram, which is official Brian Mujuru. You can get in contact with us, and we can always give you the details. Facebook as well. We can always get you through and connect you to come and spend a great Sunday with us sharing the word.
Okay. Well, let me ask my random question, and then I'm going to ask you to tell us how we get the book and the toolkit. So let's see what we got here. If your waiter or waitress was a total jerk, do you still leave a tip? Do you guys leave tips over in London?
We do, and that's and it's proper to leave a tip. Wow.
So if they were a total jerk, would you still leave a tip?
Wow. Personally, you call me off guard there. I think it's the right thing to do. I think it's the right thing to do. I would leave the tip, and by me leaving that tip, I'm hopeful that it will be a lesson to the waiter. That they shouldn't be horrible to everyone and anyone that they see. So I'll leave the tip. I hope I got that right.
Yes, I told it was random. I told you, random question.
Wow, that is random. That is so random.
All righty, Pastor Brian, please tell us how we pick up the book and how we connect with you. There might be some guys out there that need some conversation, or even some women that wanted to direct their partners to you. So how do we connect with you?
So you can connect with me firstly through my social media handles. I've got an amazing team who manage my social media. I'm always there. Most of the time I'm there. So I'll reply you as soon as you send through. So on Facebook, I'm there. That's Pastor Brian Abraham. Some people might confuse why Abraham, why Brian. Sometimes, I think it was about 6-7 years ago when I just felt in my spirit I needed to change. Not sure, I didn't change it legally, but just wanted to use that name as well. So I still use that name. That's a conversation for another day, because it's a long conversation. So if you find me, Pastor Brian Abraham, on Facebook, Instagram, official Brian Mujuru. You can also get the book on Amazon. It's available on Amazon. Both books are available on Amazon. So yeah, that's how you can connect with us. And we're going to be starting, as you were saying, new programs, Simply the Gospel Men's Edition in the new year. Look out for that. We're also going to be having more sessions, more private closed sessions where we're going to be talking to men. These will be Zoom, and there'll be closed sessions, no recordings, just trying to talk to men. And because we need to encourage men to come out, and we don't want to put any hindrances. So we're going to be starting those programs again in the new year. It is going to be exciting, and I do hope your followers are going to be stay tuned.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm a true believer that men need safe spaces to, unload and get the weight off. So that's a beautiful thing. Awesome.
Right.
Well, Pastor Brian, I have truly enjoyed my time. I want to say my continued blessings to you, your family, my love to the wife and the kids. I truly love everything that you guys are doing. I just love to see that. I mean, and I just keep on being amazing and awesome, which I'm pretty sure you're going to do anyway. So I don't have to tell you that. But from my little old corner in America, hey, you got a cheerleader over here. So
thank you so much, Lana.
That's it. Well, everybody, with that, dear, that is all for this week's episode of The Male Perspective. I'm your host, Lana Reid, and I will see everybody next time. Oh.